you already know
I
where your bread's buttered.
I have already learned the way of the world, yes.
Yeah.
I have already learned. There's no harm in learning it at a young age. That's what my dad said.
I have this philosophy that I just allow Kelly to think that she's the boss.
Okay. So it's not the other way around, wherein you wear the trousers, but she picks them for you.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, that's fine.
No,
then.
actually,
That's fine.
I think actually we're both quite happy with the fact that I am actually in charge. Or it could be
I was about to say, it's a magical illusion.
It could be some sort of magical illusion. She's convoluted this whole environment to make me believe that I'm in charge, thinking that I'm letting her think she's in charge when I'm in charge, but actually it's a complete ruse. It's the other way around.
Well, either way, she's right and we're wrong. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's fine. But no, relationships are.
Well, they're great, aren't
they? They are fantastic.
Yeah, you've got all this to come, of course.
No, I
eventually
know.
When you're still a young whippersnapper.
I don't feel young.
Do you know? How old are you now?
23.
23. Okay.
So,
well,
but I've always been told I'm a 70-year-old.
Really?
Yeah. I've always.
Wise head.
No, not wise head. Just old-fashioned.
Oh, really?
Just old-fashioned. You know when.
That's not such a bad thing.
No, but it's like, you know, when your friends say, "Oh, should we go clubbing?" What are they playing? Kool and the Gang. No, Max, they're playing Skrillex. Who's Skrillex?
Don't know who that is either.
Oh, that's even worse.
I have no idea who that is.
So it's
who? What did you say?
So Skrillex. He's a
Skrillex.
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 He's an EDM. I don't know what that means, but
EDM.
I think it's
electronic dance music. Right. Okay.
It's
Oh, okay.
And
so just. Yeah.
To me, I prefer much more, Frank Sinatra at the Sands,
Something a bit more creative and something a bit more organic that someone's created themselves rather than pressing buttons on a computer.
I think you have to have a certain element of talent to do that. So, you have to have that musical mind and brain. But I do think, when you look at the music of the past, whether we're going really old school, Mozart, anything like that, to, even Rat Pack, that to me is proper original music. That is love and soul, Ella Fitzgerald. But I guess that's...
I can't disagree with you at all, actually. I have exactly the same opinion. I get accused of being old-fashioned as well,
old-fashioned.
Especially in the studio when I play music. There's some other guys that teach in our studio and I put stuff on and they say, "Oh, what are you doing that for? Play some DJ Ice." Well, I quite like Nat King Cole Night Lights.
Yeah.
It's lovely. I love it. I'd listen to it in the car and sing along to it.
I don't like the pop music at the comms. I don't. Like, even, J-Lo, Let's Get Loud. Even that to me is a bit...
Pushing the boundaries just a bit too much,
It feels a bit staged.
Do you feel a bit dirty dancing to that?
Yeah, I don't feel like it's like a proper sort of Latin beat, Tito Puente, anything like that.
Not traditional enough.
No.
Commercialised Latin, isn't it? That's what it is, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but even like when you do like the sambas, and to me you should have that, that proper Brazilian vibe and feel and soul. I think that's the thing, soul. I think jive's a bit different. I think you can get away with, sort of a bit of the rock, rocky vibe, or not that rocky vibe.
I know what you mean.
What was it? Get Over It by the Eagles. That's the one. That's the one they usually play, which is a fantastic one. Surely when you were competing, the music must have been a bit nicer than.
Well, when I was
sometimes.
younger, obviously it was just mostly Ross Mitchell. Yeah. Some of the old stuff was really twee. Obviously, we're talking about things that would have been made in the 70s as well. So we're carried on through to the 80s.
So for Blackpool, is that Irvin Tidswell or
Irvin Tidswell,
Charles Barlow?
Well, I only ever had Irvin.
Okay.
But to be fair, I love that stuff.
Yes.
It's quite synonymous with that feeling that you get when you dance at Blackpool or you're in that ballroom.
Yep.
And actually, I did go back to Blackpool this year. Only for my student.
Okay.
Because she's 86 this year.
Oh, very good.
And she said to me, so I did pro-am with her, and she said, I might be dead next year, so can I do Blackpool one last time? Because we were part of the group, of course, that were boycotting the British Championships. And I said, okay. I relented. I said, okay, I'll do it for you. Because I was dancing with her, my other student then said, well, if you're going, can I dance? I thought, okay, fair enough.
But you're doing it for other people at that point.
Yeah, true. But then it turns out that my 86-year-old student decided not to go. Decided not to dance. So then I was still going with the lady that I wouldn't have gone had I not been going for the other lady. So I did go. But it's not the same. It's definitely not the same. However, when that band starts up, I know it's Ashley Froelich now, who's tremendous anyway. Yes. Band starts up in the venue. Something special about it. There really is something special about it.
There is, but I speak for myself. I'm not going back to the Empress until Marcus is back, and I think we talk about that the blacklist of those who didn't go, and of course people are having to go back maybe for couples' sakes and whatnot, but it's not. No one's. I don't think not a lot of people are happy to be going back because there is this backdrop of controversy. There is this backdrop of deception and nastiness, and going up there for the sake of couples is admirable, is noble. You're doing that to fulfill their dreams. That's what Blackpool is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we look at the rest of the stuff that's going on, we understand that actually for a lot of couples, their dreams can't come true because of X, Y, Z. Because
within the wrong camp, they support the wrong professionals.
Not being taught by the right people.
Yeah.
And that is wrong.
I know.
It is wrong. But it's. I mean, all the videos I saw, it did look still lacking. It did look, like that atmosphere. When you look at 2009-10, completely jam-packed. It didn't look like that.
No, you should have seen it in 1999.
1999.
Christ, it was.
I wasn't born.
No,
I wasn't born. I've watched the videos, but I wasn't born.
It's not. It really isn't quite like it was. I mean, things have declined quite a bit over the years, but significantly in the last couple of years.
When do you think it sort of first was notable that things were on the decline? That
mid 2010s, so like 2004, 2005.
So the split essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, actually, the split really happened. I think 2008, wasn't it? 2008, 2009.
I wouldn't know.
So there was 300 and something competitors, I think, in the pro ballroom when I danced it in 2008, and that's when we then had the WDSF split.
Yep.
So then things, but before that, there was already something noticeable happening. So the Latin was always very well supported, and the ballroom was not as well supported.
Okay.
But if you go back to the era of Marcus and Karen and John and Anne, so we're talking early 90s.
Yes.
That was the epitome of the week. Friday night was the biggest comp.
Yes.
It was the pro ballroom, and the Latin wasn't as well. I mean, it was well supported, of course. Don't get me wrong, but to know it was the ballroom event at the end of the week that everyone wanted to be there for, and you couldn't see. You'd have to stand up on the radiators at the back of the room to be able to see over all the sea of heads, like 6 rows deep of people standing behind the scenes.
Is that also because when you look at the quality of, let's say, those 90s, Marcus and Karen, John and Anne, Andrew and Lorraine, Heide and Adele, all these legends of the game.
Yes.
And I don't know what your view is, but when you look at even the last few years, you don't have every single one in the final being a legend that is a GOAT that's going to be sort of remembered forever.
I'm not sure what the definition of legend is.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the definition of legend is. However, what I'm trying to say is what you've got now, and it's happened. I had this conversation actually with Grant on the first episode. The dancing over the last 10, 15 years really has become a bit of a production line. So people have kind of found out a formula for success.
Yes.
That formula is line and movement. And so everyone's got to look a certain way and everyone's got to move a certain way.
Yes.
And of course what happens then is you just get like a production line of people looking very, very much the same and lacking quite a lot of their own individuality.
And
creativity. And absolutely. Because when you focus on those things, you lose the music, in my opinion. And so what's happened is a lot of the couples have thought, well, they're winning like that, so I've got to do the same. And they're being encouraged to do that.
Yes.
So it's produced what I feel really is relatively bland and very samey sort of performances for quite some time. Now that's no disrespect to the couples that are dancing.
No, of course.
I mean, they're all. I mean, trust me, they're all
They're
amazing
great.
dancers. They are amazing. But there's not a lot of individuality. There's no William and Alessandra.
No, but
there's no Massimo and.
I mean, I was speaking to my dad about this, the other day. When we look at the quality of those, especially the late 90s, Marcus and Karen, 1998, that performance in Blackpool for me is the greatest ballroom display of of dancing ever. And I think if you took that performance from 1998, particularly that waltz, into today's field, they would still win.
Yep.
And I think, when you look at that, even though we'll talk about nearly 30 years, and that performance has got the musicality, the artistry, but it's still got the line and the poise. It's totally relaxed, yet got the perfect amount of not tension, but form. And I think a lot of dancers. I say this as someone who I was still competing 2 years ago. it is all about making sure you've got that poise, and that the strength in the line, arms in the right position, and that emphasis on frame, sort of, the line of the spine. That's all well and good, but at the end of the day, there's still got to be love. There's still got to be breadth, and I know we're only talking about we're talking in a ballroom sense,
Yeah.
But that's, I think, that musicality is something that's definitely lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how they're going to bring it back, because the judges still mark.
Well, they
just
do.
mark the frame and
They do.
move on.
They do. There needs to be a few pioneers that are going to change things, and there's not many, unfortunately, in the ballroom field that are doing that. Duchan and Valeria are one of them.
Yes.
Who are doing their best to push the envelope, but some people really don't
Well,
like it at all. They don't like it.
It's making themselves a Marmite character, because some people absolutely adore it. They like pushing the boundaries. The other, the old guard or the traditionalists, it does the exact opposite effect. And that's the competitor's choice. And at least when you take someone like Duchan and Valeria, they're at least having their own style.
Absolutely.
You can say that that is
well, no one else is dancing like them in the final, are they?
No, absolutely not. They have their own sort of DNA, and that is a respectable thing, regardless if it's your cup of tea or not.
You've got to respect it. When I was competing, I was competing against the likes of William and Alessandra, and I hated it. I didn't like what they did at all. I thought it was well, not rubbish. That's the wrong choice of words. But I had no appreciation for what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I would be quite critical of what they were doing, and always wanted, my mate Jonathan Crosley to win when they were dancing in amateur. But now, looking back, and I've done this for quite some time now, my God, they were amazing.
Yeah.
And they were superb at what they did, and they brought some colour and difference to the field. And even when they were in the final, that was mid 2000s, mid 2010s.
Yeah.
All the couples were pretty much different. They were still had their own character and interpretation of everything. Yeah. And that's when those guys started retiring. That's when I think it really changed.
Yeah.
It became this bit of a production line of competitors that all look very similar. But I'm a bit, I feel a bit bad for being so hypercritical of them. It wasn't to their face. I mean, I was with William a couple of weeks ago actually, and we had a really long conversation about it. And I did during lockdown as well. I did my inspiration video. I did a video about couples that had inspired me, and they were one of the couples that had inspired me, because subsequently, when I was a professional, I would always turn to them for choreographical inspiration and musical inspiration. Because they were tremendous.
Was that mainly in tango, quick step, or
no, all of it? Everything.
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 Cool. If you're trying to talk about inspiration, I mean, if you talk about when you got Marcus and Karen, I loved Mirko.
Right.
Mirko, I thought it was.
Mirko with Alessia or Mirko with
Alessia. No, Alessia. We'll talk about again 2009, the Blackpool, particularly that tango La Mariposa. It's just unreal. I think. I was still going, doing the rounds at UKA, and doing pre-bronze, in 2009. But for those who are watching that, I think you're right.
I was on the floor with him at the same time. I mean, phenomenal competitor.
Well, what's that like?
Phenomenal.
Was there an aura? Was there a sort of?
Oh, absolutely. They definitely give off a certain energy. And one thing I did notice with them, because I was in the same heat with him at Blackpool one year. It might have been 2009 actually. Not a bead of sweat on him. Back to go on the floor for the quick step. I think for the 48. So you got 3 heats, and he was in the same heat as me. I think we were in heat 3. Not a bead of sweat on him as we're going on the floor for the quick step. So
really,
a superb athlete, absolutely superb athlete.
Is that because of the Italian camps, etc.?
I don't know if it's that necessarily, because I've definitely seen my fair share of sweaty Italians. But he and I mean him and Alessia were just so supremely fit. I mean, I think he comes from a very athletic family. Not that that necessarily makes a great deal of difference. No, but he obviously got the good genes. One of the things I do remember, my first Blackpool as a pro, 2007. I was doing a bit of waltz, and at the time Jonathan Wilkins was dancing with Hazel. And I'm doing my bit of waltz, and I think I'm doing going down past the stage, and I'm doing something kind of stationary. And then I see out the corner of my eye Jonathan and Hazel coming, and he looked like a tiny person on the floor, because he was so deep in his pivots. And I was completely flummoxed. I'm not someone who gets flummoxed. And there's this energy and speed. I was never actually a big fan of his dancing either anyway. But again, subsequently, these people have something about them. They have a certain energy and a commitment to movement, and that the guys that aren't making the finals and the semi-finals, they don't have that. They don't have it, and yeah, it knocked me for six. Really, I was all of a quiver. He was whipping past me, and he was lower, much lower than me. And he's taller than me, and he was much lower than I was. So this tremendous energy that I definitely didn't have at the time.
I mean, when we talk about the difference in times, was the quality of, let's say, that six so much more superior than, let's say, today, wherein we got the top six and then got the semi, and it's quite close? Do you think there's sort of the gap between the best couples has sort of reduced now in the last sort of 10 years?
Absolutely. I think that for quite some time now, not necessarily right at the top of the final, but maybe not right at this moment in time, but definitely in the last 10 years, I'd say you could easily take 6 couples out of the 48 and put them in the 24 easily.
Yep. Yeah.
Easily. Or even the semi-final, probably.
Yes.
And you wouldn't necessarily moan too much.
I mean,
probably could.
I mean, I remember when I took my partner to the Royal Albert Hall in 2021, and I'm not saying this may be a thing about form. I'm not sure, but I managed to tick off the 6 finalists in all 4.
Did you?
And that.
What, before they started dancing?
Yeah, in the 24.
In the
24.
Because often when you go to a comp, you can mark the finalists before they even start dancing.
Yes.
Before they even turn up.
Yes. But some people already do that the minute they walk on the floor.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know whether that's right or wrong, really. It's good that you've got strong quality, but should you be able to determine or guess accurately every single finalist 2 rounds before the final?
It's very difficult, isn't it? Because what we do is so subjective, and people formulate their own opinions before
they've been on the floor
in a previous comp as well.
Yes.
Yeah, previous comp. It would be wonderful, wouldn't it, if you could have a couple that in the 24 were amazing. You think, oh, these guys are going to win, and then by the time they get to the final or the semi-final, let's say, there's another 2 or 3 couples that suddenly have upped their game and are much better. And it wouldn't be great if that was different every time you went to do a comp. So sometimes you could have a couple that in 3 comps have been in the 24, but then suddenly the next comp they come 3rd.
Do you think,
but warrantedly and genuinely deserve that? I mean, it'd be marvellous, wouldn't it?
But do you think our let's say, I mean, we've got less championships now than we used to, particularly in this country anyway. Do you think, let's say in those majors, the events have got boring, predictable, or do you think...
Well, definitely predictable. Definitely
yeah.
predictable, because you do know beforehand who's going to be in there. But I think perhaps that's always been the case. But I think that the finals became more interesting because they were so different. The couples themselves are so diverse.
Yes.
But when the couples all kind of look the same, and you kind of expect the same performance from them every time, because they're so wonderfully fit and consistent, then it does become a little bit of just procession almost.
That's one thing I will, if we talk about the amateur ballroom. I mean, when you look at Glenn, for example, on the floor, his fitness, his the power, even the choreography, it's so different. I think that's the closest, maybe in all in the ballroom categories at the moment, to someone who is their own person, who's got their own style, and it's exciting. When we're watching the WDO amateur, every round they just got better and better.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they're the champions. That's why
they're phenomenal competitors. Phenomenal competitors, and they are so dedicated to what they do as well. I mean, Warren and Christy have done a marvellous job there. It's not only Warren and Christy, of course, but they have done a marvellous job. And they genuinely love what they do as well.
And again, we talk about aura. Competing against Glenn was always a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because
you're a bit older than him, aren't you?
Probably 2 years.
2 years older than him. Yeah.
2 years, but we've got the British Youth Finals, UK Closed Finals, and even the other sort of the international comps. My last comp, the WDO, and he just has an aura, and you have to respect that. And but as a competitor, at the time, especially sort of begrudging it, going, oh, okay, here we go. But having been off for 2 years, I do watch in complete admiration.
Do you think you've got different eyes now?
Oh, absolutely.
Having had the setbacks you've had and had the chance to reflect on things.
Yeah, no. Of course, I've after I sort of was told to come off the floor. That was October 2021. I remember watching the British national final, and it was the amateur, and I promise you, I threw a glass against the wall in my flat in London, because I was so angry and upset. Also because I thought, no, that could have been a good day for Katie and I, because you look at most people, apart from Glenn, most people's stamina wasn't great. Nobody was on their A game. I thought that's such a lost opportunity. That upset me.
Because my memory of you is of being a very fierce competitor and very fit, very energetic and powerful.
We might not have always had the best line or shape. Bob Grover, he's been teaching. He taught us since we were sort of 12.
He taught me from when I was 10.
Really? There we go. Good company. Always trying to sort of sort my left arm out. The frame wasn't my strong point, but I think we had the stamina and and at least we come off the floor and give it 100%. But having now watched now competitions and going back, slowly going back and watching the field again, trying to figure out what sort of dancer do I want to be if I can come back. Not old style, not because you can't be too old school, but just beautiful dancing, rather than trying to blitz around the floor, rather than trying to do laps. And it's all good, going quick step, going around the floor 12 times. Yeah. But if everything else is at the detriment of that, then it becomes a bit of a procession like that. People think that the more they go around the floor, the faster they go around the floor, the better they'll look and better they'll be. But that's not being true to themselves either. Really. Well, maybe it is for some of them, but you've got to be true to yourself and what do you want out of dancing. Dancing should be a beautiful cavalcade of movement and love between you and the person you dance with. It doesn't have to be love in a romantic sense. No. I dance my sister.
I know you dance.
No. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that.
No. But looking at looking even at the field now, it is so much smaller than I remember. I don't know what happened.
Well, there are of course a few mitigating circumstances for that, of course, because we've had a couple of years which has been a bit rubbish.
Yes. Have we?
We have. Yeah.
I didn't know.
So I know that obviously one of the reasons why you're in the car today is to talk about that. So there'll be a few people that'll be watching this that actually probably don't know who you are, and so I do have some other dancers in the car that people will know, of course.
Of course.
But so, what's your story from the beginning, Max? So, I mean, it shouldn't take too long because you're not that old.
No.
So you haven't got a lot to tell. So, I mean, you're a boy from Maidstone.
Yep. Started dancing at the age of 7. My proprietary school ballet was compulsory.
Oh, right.
It was compulsory between the ages of 3 to 5, and we were both, Katie and I, quite naturally good at it. But Mum did a couple of ball lessons and got us into a local sort of dance club called Crafty Dance Club by Karen Anti-Day. Did the medal sort of circuit for 7 years. 2012, Kate and I went in the open circuit together, and just kept on chipping away. We didn't make any finals, I think, until 2015. And now I'm talking about even finals on the Sunday circuit.
Right. Okay.
Back then, the Michael Foskett's, the Luke Millers, the Lloyd Perrys, AJ. It was such a high class, of dancing. So it took our time in junior, and we made the British closed final in our last junior. Then went straight into the youth final. It was a youth final for every single year in ballroom, and in our first and last year as youth, we made the Latin finals at the UK closed and British closed. And yes, then lockdown happened. I mean, Katie and I were both university students. I studied law at that point. Katie, biochemistry. It was fantastic. Being able to train at home. That's which is an advantage of dancing with sister. We were training at home. We were running.
Yep.
And then and sort of had the second vaccine.
So what made you get it in the first place?
Because universities, there was such incremental pressure for students to have the vaccine for them to go on campus. It wasn't a rule that if you don't have the vaccine, you're not coming on. But it was made very clear, particularly at my university, at the time, Royal Holloway, and going into BPP to do the barrister training course, there is an expectation.
Right.
I didn't particularly want it, and I'm very open about the fact that I didn't want, not because I am opposed to it or I think other people shouldn't have it, I just wasn't confident in the science of it, which is ironic because, my second jab, and it's the weirdest feeling. I remember getting the second jab in Maidstone in a car park with my dad, getting back in the car, and a cold rush, not physically, but a cold rush mentally, thinking this is a really poignant moment. And it was spooked me out for days. And then, of course, the cardiac attacks started happening when I was trying to dance, when I was trying to run. We couldn't figure out for the whole of September really what was happening.
So just tell me exactly what would you experience then when you would go to dance? What would happen?
It's very, very similar symptoms to a heart attack.
Right.
You know, the heart is constricting, it is struggling to circulate, would be struggling to breathe on the most incredible scale, and it's this excruciating pain. You know, the heart was and is failing. You know, that's pericarditis for you. You know, inflammation of the pericardium muscle and permanent scarring of the myocardium, and I've not got a light case of it. Right. Which is why I'm still not dancing now. And you know, what we didn't realise at the time was that when I increased my heart rate, it makes sense now in hindsight, but you know, at the time, you know, when we increased the heart rate, you know, you increase the chance of a cardiac attack. Right. And you know, we made the decision not to do the UK. We received very little support, but we, you know, for doing that. But
did you tell your teachers at the time?
Yeah, no, the teachers behind it was more the fact that, you know, we reached out to the DPA, and we had nothing. Right. And having gone for, you know, just under 10 years religiously to nearly every DPA comp, it was a bittersweet moment. And then we thought, okay, we won't do the international quarter qualifiers at Brentwood, and we did do the WGO against the medical advice of one of the cardiologists I was seeing at the time. Right. Just because I just thought, okay, well, if this is serious, what's happening to my heart? And you know, we didn't really know what was going on.
So no one had said to you that you think that this is what's caused it, or anything like that at all?
It was only after the WGO World Championships.
That was October 21, right?
Yes, yeah. And you've got to remember, at that event, my heart failed twice.
Wow.
You know, and
wow, and you still came fifth.
Yeah, or sixth technically. There was a marking error afterwards.
But,
really? Yeah.
Oh, right.
You know, which is upsetting. You know, I sort of did reach out to Mason's parents because I felt awful. You know, I think like if something like that happens, you should.
How on earth did they ever?
I don't know.
Issue,
you know, I think again it was the marking systems provided by the systems. I think, if my understanding correct, is used by the DPA. So I won't. I don't know. But I know that WGO did a statement.
Okay.
But you know, we talk about Warren Christie. You know, Christie helped me, basically carried me down the stairs at one point.
Wow.
You know, coming off the quick step final.
And you still carried on.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You're doing your ballroom section.
Yeah.
So obviously, some people won't necessarily understand. You do the ballroom section first, and then you do the Latin section.
Correct.
So was it all ballroom first and then all Latin?
Yes, all ballroom first and Latin.
Because I know some comps you do a round of each, of course. We used to have that on the continent. So you did all of the ballroom, and then you had to be carried out. Yeah. Because your heart had failed. Yeah. And then you thought, I know, I'm going to go and get changed into my Latin clothes and do the Latin section now.
Because, and there's, which people, you know, I'm quite not a calculated thinker, but you know, I was thinking about the consequences of things. You know, we invited all of our friends. Our friends had never seen us dance before. Right. But you know, in the back of my mind, you know, before the comp, and not knowing what the problem is, but going, right, if my heart is failing or something's wrong with my heart, and I can't ever dance again, at least I want to go out with a bang.
You could literally go out with a bang though, couldn't you?
And you know, then you know, the sport was just phenomenal for my friends. You know, my partner came up, bless her, to see the final. And in that Latin final, James, I mean, I can't watch the videos because I can see, even though I've got this Cheshire Grin smile, the pain in my eyes.
So what's the pain? What is it like?
Is it so short? It's a very sharp pain in the centre of my heart, and it's almost like a dagger being twisted. Right. It is just, it's so central. It's like such a small focal point, and it's just like my heart is just. It's almost as someone's like grabbing my heart and squeezing it. Right. You know, and yeah, that the jive was horrific. You know, told the jive was horrific, but you know, coming off that floor, I knew that was the last time, and I, you know, was in Nottingham. You know, went all the way back home to London that same night. And I remember getting in the shower around 2 o'clock in the morning. I just bawled my eyes out for 2 hours because I knew that competition I tried to do everything to the best of my ability. I knew it was a bad performance. I knew we could have done better. I knew that I let myself down, but I didn't know what was wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't, I like knowing, learning. I different things. That's why I try and get involved in lots of projects. I like learning, and I just couldn't understand why my body was hating me,
Right.
which is what it felt like.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, I go to the top cardiologist in the country. Brilliant, Dr. Lyon, and he said, Max, you could have died.
Wow.
Because he knew a rugby player who tried to do a competition, rugby match, and ripped a hole in his heart.
Wow.
And
is that because the heart is pumping so much and there's like a restriction and then it just rips?
Exactly, because it's being so much, because of inflammation, it's basically constricting it so much, and the heart's trying its best to, not, or to get over the inflammation, to be able to pump normally, and it just tears. And
Right.
this guy, he's got a hole in his heart. I don't know what's happened to him, but that was when I really realised, okay, that when you get told, right, you could have died. That was just scary. So scary. And then it was, I had so many tests, James, because they didn't know what was wrong with it. In the back of our minds, we were thinking at that point, right, is this something to do with the vaccine? But the whole cardiologist team thought, let's rule out everything. And if that's the conclusion we make, that's the conclusion we make, and that's empirical. And it was, November, pericarditis. Then after an MRI, it was perimyocarditis, and the myocarditis is the dangerous part. It's the scarring,
Yeah.
And that's for life. Then I haven't done since. I've tried to go back to lessons a couple of times in the last year, nearly 2 years, but every time it gets worse, and it's like I'm continually fighting my body.
So is it any kind of exertion?
Yeah.
Gives it to you?
Yeah. I mean, I was in the gym the other day, and I genuinely, celebrated getting my heart rate to 160,
Right.
which isn't, for a lot of people, that's good. But the problem is, for us and my cardiologist, it's a case of, well, we want to get you back to elite performance, to try and get you back into dancing. A lot of people who have got my sort of condition from the vaccine, they'll just take the anti-inflammatory medication and they'll live their life. They're not going to go out and do, strong Ironman competition or marathons, anything. But that's where my case is a bit more difficult. Is right, okay, how do we get a full recovery from something we don't have the science on, for something that we don't fully understand? COVID-19 vaccine-induced heart conditions are so much more complicated than what we first thought even 2 years ago when I got my diagnosis.
So when did they exhaust all of the other possibilities and then decide, perhaps it is the second jab that's done it?
So it was, we did the WHO. Literally the next week, I just had a raft of tests, exercise, stress tests, echocardiograms, and it was, that November 2021. We got the pericarditis. 2021 December. It was the 23rd, a couple of days before Christmas. So I got a call from Dr. Lyon saying, got some bad news. That it's actually worse than we thought.
Wow.
And I began the medication in January 2022. This time last year I was 15.5 stone. Because just being completely
sedentary, I suppose.
Yeah.
From doing a lot to then being quite sedentary, I guess.
It wasn't a case of my mental health. I don't have a big historicity of mental health problems, but losing the one thing which I love. And James, I wasn't the best dancer. I'm not going to proclaim that I was going to be, the next Bill and Bobby. I'm not, but to have something which I just love doing more than anything in the world, totally and utterly stripped away from me, from something which shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
That was the thing that really mucked my head up. That's why I basically just left dancing for 8 months. Didn't really speak to any of my coaches. At that point, I was only speaking to Marcus through, when he was president of the British Dance Council.
Right.
That was it. It was a very long time until I started having the confidence to speak to anyone else, because I felt so wholly lonely, upset, isolated, and abandoned.
Yeah.
From the medical field, from when you're MP, it tells you explicitly they don't want to go near you with barge pole because you are such a controversial.
Was that the actual words they used?
There or thereabout, from their spat, yes.
Wow.
Because particularly at the time, 2020, late 2021, early 2022,
Well, they were still advocating for people to
absolutely,
have them, weren't they?
And it's really, really quite funny that now it's done the whole loop when it's convenient. When I've been speaking to MPs and I've been going on a lot on television to talk about the vaccine, and that's not to discourage people, but it's also to make people aware, because people should have that information.
That people should have all of the facts,
always,
really, before they make an informed decision.
And it's only because now that the vaccine uptakes for tetanus, for measles, mumps and rubella, all those things are going down because people know that there are very rare, and I'm not going to say this. Everyone's got it. It's very rare what's happened, but because people know that there are adverse reactions which haven't been spoken about by the government, it gives people a sense of mistrust.
Of course.
And that's why now things are starting to change. That's why the language is starting to be a bit more sympathetic to vaccine injury. Now most broadcasters are talking, even the BBC, are talking about it.
It's a little late though, isn't it, now for some people?
No, it is. No, it is. And there are. I know a chap, Alex Mitchell, who he got blood clots from AstraZeneca. He's lost his leg.
Wow.
And again, I don't. There are not a lot of people who have what I would say genuine, real vaccine injury. But if on your medical papers and you've gone to the best people in the country, they've said, right, this is completely what's happened to you, then you have to just accept that's the fact. And there are people, who have got the most awful injuries from the vaccine and are getting no help at all. Even my petition, which was totally thwarted by Facebook, and I won't go into too political, but big tech and big media. The government's response when we hit 11,000 was, there's not enough evidence to suggest that vaccine injury is prevalent enough to warrant changes to compensation.
Do you not think that they knew about these things before that time anyway as well? So
100%.
they were,
100%.
So they were covering their own backsides still, weren't they?
The government put out advice about pericarditis on the government website on December the 13th, 2021. Ironically, the same day I went on GP News.
Right.
That's not a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence, but it did make me laugh afterwards. And they knew about this. That's why there's no discussion, in my view, on the vaccine rollout. They completely dropped it overnight.
They did, didn't they?
And that isn't, in my view, that's not a coincidence, because people weren't taking their third jab. People weren't taking their boosters because, first of all, I think there was a bit of lockdown fatigue. People were sick and tired of COVID's COVID. It's not as bad as maybe we might have first thought. It's not a killer disease like Ebola. Let's just go on with our lives. And there's also a big argument, and data sort of suggesting it now, saying that people know about these vaccine injuries, but because the government don't talk about them, it makes them suspicious, and rightfully so. And you can't disagree with that argument. If you're going to hide behind a wall and totally ignore what's going on, we lost. There's a group called COVID Vaccine UK. There's around 1,100 members, people who with vaccine injuries from COVID-19 sort of vaccine rollout. We lost a chap to suicide last year,
Right.
because when you are told, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're not real, you're a liar, you're a charlatan, and that's from people who are very pro-vaccine. And then on the flip side, you get the anti-vaxxers, and when I say anti-vaxxers, a lot of people made the decision not to make the vaccine. That's their own choice. Absolutely, people have the right to do that. When I say anti-vaxxers, I'm talking about the people who are angry, who are aggressive, and particularly, I got death threats, James.
Wow, really? From anti-vaxxers?
From anti-vaxxers, absolutely, because they were, saying, stupid enough to take it in the first place, hope it kills you.
Right, that sort of attitude.
Yeah,
right.
And I say death threats. Definitely messages.
Yeah,
I don't know what these.
That's bad enough, I would say.
Yeah.
So the job of someone who is against the rollout should be to help and nurture people like yourself,
Yeah.
to be there to support you through your problems, not to say, oh, well, it's your own stupid fault, you shouldn't have had it in the first place, because so many people, it came about so quickly, really, didn't it? And some people just always trust what the doctors say because they think that they know better than they do, because they've been through medical school or whatever, and they're saying it's safe and all that, and if you do this, you won't get this, and they're just going to go along with it, aren't they? They're going to believe it, and so it's not their fault. It's not their fault.
No.
Some more people are more sceptical.
Yeah. And
I was always exceptionally sceptical. Always exceptionally sceptical. So I made the right decision for what I felt was for me.
Absolutely. And that's because we live in a democracy, and you have that freedom and that sovereign right to be able to make the decision you want to do. And when we were looking at these, and that is one of the reasons why I got it. Vaccine passports. I've studied law now for 5 years. To me, a vaccine passport is the most unethical, most immoral concept that you can have a two-tier society based on whether somebody puts something in their arm or not, and it's a disgrace. And when I look at particularly the abuse I get, a lot of people expected me to turn around and say, because you've got to remember, I was one of the first people to come out. With when I did the GP News interview, I was the first person from my recollection and understanding to go on a major news network and talk about vaccine injury. That we had a case of a bereavement, which was on the BBC, but I was the first interview.
And you didn't get very long to talk either, did you?
No.
There's no time to explain your point of view.
Patrick Christie's was, the funny thing about it is, I was told, especially by one of the producers, do not give your opinions on the vaccine.
Right.
Ofcom will absolutely hammer us hard. And of course, Patrick Christie's, during the interview goes, would you recommend the vaccine? And I just thought, goodness gracious me, how do I answer this? But I've always said that it's people's choice, because I'm a massive patriot, I'm a massive Democrat. I think that freedom of choice is so fundamentally important if you want to say we live in a democracy. I think it's absolutely imperative that we live our lives like that. And a lot of people expected me to say, bash the vaccine and whatnot. And I remember phone calls from my friends saying, oh, should I get it? Yes. I've got a very close friend, who rang me. One of his parents isn't particularly well. Do I get it? Yes, get it. Because if you get it, and it increases the chance of your parent not increasing the risk of something nasty happening to them, please go and get it.
Was this before or was this after?
This was afterwards.
Right. Okay.
A couple of my friends were really hesitant. I said no, go and get it. And a lot of people expected me to, bash the vaccine and whatnot, and I won't. And that's why, I even now on Twitter, I live with it. Particularly as I'm doing more things and talk, TV and GB News. A lot of people resent the fact that I wouldn't become the poster boy or the face of a very angry movement. Actually, I just want people to be able to make the choices they want to make, and those who do suffer rare adverse reactions, they should be supported properly. And we don't get any support at all. None.
Because then that's an admission of, if they give you support though, it's then admitting that they know there's a problem, and they don't want to do that.
Of course they don't. When you talk about all of the vaccine ministers, particularly Nadine Zawari, being asked about vaccine injury, it doesn't exist. Chris Whitty, there's no evidence to suggest that the AstraZeneca, when that got kicked out the UK, I think it was either March or April 2021. Before then, whilst the rest of Europe was getting rid of AstraZeneca, he was saying no, get it, it's still safe. So of course they don't want to be able to be liable, and that's why. This is what my dissertation was, on the bar course, about the legal avenues for vaccine injury. There are none.
Right.
You can't get any form of remedy. You can't get any compensation or justice, and that's why when politicians weren't listening, when the media were ignoring you, when you were just getting abuse left, right, centre, and even in the legal route, because the indemnity the government had given the vaccine manufacturers, there isn't. I've never felt so alone. And that was why, again, a small part of leaving the industry was also because I felt like part of the industry also left me. I was just forgotten.
Yeah.
And that's what I said earlier. Marcus was the only one I was speaking to. I got a lovely handful of letters from him, and he didn't have to do that. He teaches me, for sure, but he didn't have to. Not with on behalf of the BDC and anything like that. But no, the support for me personally, particularly from the industry, that was something I really struggled with.
Right.
You know, of course, the world keeps moving around, of course, you know, but
I think a lot of them had blinkered to it as well. They didn't want to think there was problems.
No.
So
No.
because they were all sucked into the whole situation.
Yep.
That the rest of the country was involved with, and I suppose they didn't want to maybe think that they'd made the wrong decision as well, because potentially something bad could happen to them.
But that was the thing, you know, when I did my petition, I was shocked by how few dancers, because you know I'm getting the information and whatnot, how few people, you know, got behind that, and you know how even my competitors, you know, I remember when there was a competitor who got his appendix. Yeah, he got appendicitis. You know, I was the first to message him saying, "Get well." You know, I had the same thing. If you need to know how I got over it so quickly, then you know, if something happened devastating to a competitor, I'd always be the first to look after it, because what happens off the floor is completely different to what happens on the floor.
No, of course.
You know, you're a sportsman, you know, on the floor, but off the floor, you know, you should be an element of camaraderie, you know, and collectivity and
compassion for your fellow man.
Absolutely. But maybe that's because we're old school. Maybe you talk about 360. You know, maybe I don't know. I wasn't happy about that sort of stuff, and that's why, you know, even when I went to the WDO, you know, amateur championships, I was so nervous because I hadn't seen most of these people for 2 years, and I was very, unsurprising at WDO.com. You know, everyone's very lovely and whatnot, and people, a lot of people made a point of coming up, and that was lovely. But for 2 years, I felt so alone. And I think there was a part of me that point stage, you know, even probably this time last year, you know, 15 and a half stone, you know, struggling with mental health problems.
So you never thought, you didn't get low enough then to think that there would be a way out? I mean, like other people have done.
No. But you know, in all transparency, there were days, James, where I genuinely didn't think I could go on. You know, I was going to bed nearly every night thinking I could die. And that's the reality of it. You know, living in London in a basement apartment, doing the barrister training course. But I go to night, and my heart's just on rapid, you know, pain and exertion, and you know. It was pointless me going to the A&E. I went to A&E around seven to 8 times, you know, in the first couple of weeks of the second vaccine. You know, no help at all. You know, so I was just suffering in my room by myself. So
what do they do to you then when you go there? And you've got all these problems. They just say, "Oh, take an ibuprofen."
They claimed it was anxiety attacks.
Right. Okay.
And I remember speaking to a nurse and saying, "Look," and this is, you know, I think this is sort of late September 2021, and you know, I think, what's the chance of this being from the vaccine? You know, it's the only thing that's changed in my life in the last few months. And he turned around and said, "Well, did you leave your tinfoil hat at the front entrance?"
Wow, did he really say that?
100%. And I just thought, and I hope, and I'm not a nasty person, James. I do hope he's seen me online or on TV.
Yeah.
Because, I've spoken to so many doctors, you know, the last few years, and I've had apologies from a handful.
Right. Okay.
Because it's not their fault. You know, they were told to, you know, promote this thing, you know, and to get it out there and put it in people's arms, you know, to protect us from a deadly virus that's going to kill us all. And you know, it wasn't really necessary for people in my age group.
No.
You know, of course, those who are vulnerable, but I didn't have a pre-existing health condition. Ironically, now I do.
Did you get COVID?
I've never had it. I've never ever had it officially.
Right.
The thing about me getting COVID is that if I got COVID, I would know, because my heart would basically have the same experience with the vaccine, because the vaccine and COVID.
Yeah.
You know, there are. My sister, you know, she'll tell you the similarities between both of them. But so there's 1 or 2 times I thought I've had it. But that's being a cold.
Right.
And you know, when I'm rushing off, you know, to hospital at 4 o'clock in the morning in Belfast last year, last October, that would have never happened. And I do wonder if I had stuck to my principles, if I stuck to my guns, with one of the very few times I've ever actually been, I've actually sort of listened to authority in a weird way. I've always been very rebellious. Rebellious with thought, not with action, but with thought. I always, sometimes think, what would happen if I didn't get the vaccine? I'd still be competing today. But I also do believe that everything in life happens for a reason.
Right. So you're meant for a different purpose now.
Yeah, I think, and the chances of me getting back to a competition is around 12%.
Right.
I could do lessons, probably if the course was okay, you're never going to compete again, but you can do lessons, so you can learn, and then you become you can take your exams and whatnot. We could do that in a very safe, secure environment. But no, when we're talking about competing at 12%, and that's going to be really, 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 really tough. But maybe towards the end of the youth, as at university, I'd lost my way, my discipline a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't have gone. Maybe had the drinks or the food. Maybe I should have had. And you don't really appreciate something till it's gone. And that's why I was a boy when I sort of had the vaccine. And I look like a boy now. I still look young. I still got ID'd, but the maturity I've had to deal with in getting over all of this.
Well, you've had to grow up very quickly, haven't tremendously quickly.
And
because you've had a very, very serious problem.
Yeah.
And it's something that typically affects old people.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And the decision for me to go public about it was because I thought, okay, at the time I need to explain this to the dance industry, because not going to comps, I thought, me not going to the UK and being doing a 10 dance, which that year we would have won probably.
Right.
I thought that meant something to the promoters. I thought that meant something to the community, and to some it was it was a shame that we didn't go. To others didn't even blink their eyes. That's why I went public. That's why I went on GB News, and that also really helped my own recovery, because when you're sitting there in a studio with a presenter in front of hundreds of thousands of people, well, that's like why I am even now about dancing today. I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anyone now, because I've been out, because I've realised actually the most important, not being marked first or second is the most important thing in your life. That isn't fundamentally. Your health is, your family is, making sure that you have options in life that you can survive. They're the important things, not where you place at a competition on the Sunday circuit. And it sounds very negative, but
I don't think it's negative at all.
No.
I think that's the right priority. I mean, what we do is what we've got is a gift.
Yes.
And we should treat it as such, and it shouldn't rule our lives at all, because there's far more important things. And as you say, the health. If you haven't got your health, you haven't got anything, have you?
No.
At all.
No.
So that is of
You haven't got
paramount
security.
importance.
You haven't got. And again, being with all this happened to me at the age of 21. Never having really had anything serious happen in my life, and I lived in that sort of privileged bubble wherein nothing had really major happened in my life up until then. It's a kick to the system. It's the biggest event that's ever happened to me, and I think could ever happen to me on a personal scale. Of course, things will have to happen with family members, but on a personal scale, I don't think it can get more detriment. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. But no, it's changed who I am. It's changed exactly how I view the world, particularly this thing I've called dancing. But I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be slowly getting back into it, to be seeing people again, to be feeling just that music.
A little bit normal again.
Yeah, I mean, I was helping out, Peter Nash's competition on the weekend.
Oh, right.
Fantastic. 400 to 500, dancers and attendants. Brilliant. And you got Paul Fielding, his fantastic music, and just that feel and the vibe. And I was helping on the stage and whatnot, making sure things were just running smoothly for Peter and Faye. But even I had to collect the numbers once or twice, and standing on that floor, it is like electricity. Even for these very wooden shoes, wooden leather shoes, the electricity runs through. Like, okay, and then Paul plays the boy, the cha-cha from Blackpool, bam, bam, but and it's just casino, but the electricity. That's why it's so special. It's why it's.
Well, it always connects to the music, of course.
Yes.
And that's what people talked about earlier.
Yes.
The dancers have forgotten, it seems, that they could do the same sort of performance in a field with wellies to some bloke banging on some tin foil lids. But yeah, real dancers dance to the music, don't they? And it's great that you're getting yourself back involved in it again after what you've been through.
Slowly, but.
So what's next for you then with regards to campaigning? You're campaigning more, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Being involved in groups to try and increase awareness of the people that have been through similar things to you. You did a film as well, didn't you, with John Bowie? Is that right?
Yes, I appeared on I think it was called a second opinion, or I can't actually remember.
All right.
I think it was called a second opinion. But yeah, it was. It reached around 1.5 million views on YouTube and then taken down.
Of course, we've got that problem with this video.
Yes,
as well, potentially.
No, absolutely, and I apologise for that in advance.
There's alternatives.
Yeah, you've got Rumble and now Twitter since Musk has sorted it out. But no, I mean, trying to campaign. There was an event in Parliament the other day which I was privileged to be part of. I can't give a lot of information out because it is still early days, but it does look like the views and attitudes of those in Westminster is changing. I'm also I'm appearing on Talk TV and GB News because I've always been interested in current affairs. I've always been interested in the world and the way systems run, democracy, And maybe
you were Greek in a previous life.
Maybe. If I had a Greek body, I'd be much happier. Let me tell you. But so getting into political stuff because, again, I used to campaign so much politically in my junior career.
Right.
I never told anyone.
Politically, as in for political parties?
Oh, no,
or dancing political politics?
So British politics. So rightly or wrongly, and this is going to take it down on YouTube. I've been since I was 14 staunch Brexiteer.
Right.
Rightly or wrongly, but I did so much campaigning and whatnot. Going out on the streets, running events and rallies, all the way through my junior to 2019, essentially. I mean. And I had to hide that completely from the industry because, of course, if you have got a political opinion, someone disagree with, they may not mark you.
Absolutely right. That goes with the same with the vaccination situation as well. Because if you say one thing about something and it goes against their opinion, and then you go into a comp and they've got a pen in their hand, if they don't agree with your views on something, then I like that couple better. Why? I just do. Nothing to do with the fact that I disagree with them.
No, about nothing to do with that. No.
Vaccine policy or Brexit policy.
I hid it so well that I was invited to the European Parliament to discuss with members of the European Parliament.
That's quite. And how old were you then?
I was 19.
Wow.
And I didn't even tell my parents because.
Really? Were your parents heavily into Remain?
No. They're Brexiteers.
Right. Okay.
But they wouldn't want me expressed because at that time I was still competing a lot. And they wouldn't have wanted me risking the reputational damage of being open with my views.
Do you not think that's ridiculous, though?
No, it's nuts.
Well, that's ridiculous that we have to hide how we feel about things outside of the ballroom dance world.
Because it's so relevant. And, when I went to Brussels, we had a lesson in Starlight with Alison, and Alison says, why have you got that massive suitcase? Well, after this lesson, Alison, I'm getting the last train from London St Pancras to Brussels. What do you mean? And I said, we've always been very close to Alison. She's an absolute gem and always been a stalwart teacher of Katie and mine. Always incredibly supportive. And I explained to her, that was what I was doing and whatnot. She laughed, but I had to hide it from everyone. I had to hide it from the industry. I had to hide it from my parents because the fear that if I go out on the competition on the weekend and somebody doesn't like my views, they won't mark me.
No, exactly.
And as we said, with my left arm, that was the risk. I couldn't risk it.
See, the thing is if you've got a dodgy left arm,
I know.
It's a simple excuse. I don't like him because his left arm's dodgy.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's an easy excuse, and that's the thing with dancing, is that a judge only needs the simplest of excuses or reasons to not mark you, and you can't go against it because it's their opinion. It's so subjective.
But it is wrong, and I think what.
But I mean, of course, they could think I don't like him because he wants the whole of Europe to burn.
Well, not burn, but
you know what I mean. That's because they take it to extremes as well. Because you say you've got one feeling. So let's say, for instance, you say, I think it's probably you should get all of the evidence before you go
Correct.
ahead and take some sort of medication.
Yes.
You shouldn't just follow everyone and do what everyone else is doing.
Mm.
Oh, then suddenly you become an anti-vaxxer and
Yeah.
you're
labelled immediately.
Immediately.
Bringing Brexit here, maybe racist, xenophobic.
Yeah, exactly.
And we have a lot of European dancers, and that. Yeah, none of my views have ever been against anything like that, but people can label. So that's the world we live in. But I think in dancing, the fact we should be celebrating people having different views, and our world should be anyway, because we're not a bubble, or however much some people may think it. Mm-hmm. Our world is completely conducive and related to the outer workings. What happens in the real world. COVID showed that very big time. Actually, our world isn't just this protected bubble which happens regardless of what happens in the world. Actually, we are wholly dependent and reliant on outer workings. And no, I mean, I think it's the judging thing really mucks me up, because I'm doing my sports law masters. That's all of
what's that? Sorry,
sports law masters.
Sports law masters
at Montfort University.
Right.
A masters in law, and it's all about making sure that within sport you have a fairness of the game. That everyone has equal opportunity. That when they go on that football pitch, or that tennis lawn, or even skating, on the ice rink, everyone has the same opportunity to win the gold. And I can't say hand on heart that parts of work. I can't say hand on heart that that's the case in our industry. It's not.
Well, how can you make it like that in our industry? Because the sports that you mentioned there, football and tennis. So you could have. I support Southampton. Yeah. Obviously. So
my condolences.
Thanks very much.
But in fairness, I'm an Arsenal fan, so we're both crying.
Yeah. Well, it was our fault, I think, actually, that
we
kind of knocked your wind out of yourselves, didn't we? Because we should have beaten you that day.
Yes.
Anyway, so you could have a team full of superstars, a team full of the best players, and just because of luck or being unlucky, they could hit the post 25 times.
Yep.
And then some player could slip when he's passing the ball back to
Gerrard,
the goalkeeper, and suddenly it's a goal to the other team, and they've done nothing, and they win.
Yes.
And that's unfair, but it's fair.
Yes.
What we do is completely not like that at all, because you can then go for. We can be competing in the same comp. We can be of similar level. Mm-hmm. You can have a lesson or several lessons with every single one of the judges.
Yes. I
have no lessons with any of the judges. You will win.
Yes,
Fact.
Always. And that's the issue. And you asked how we fix it. The way we fix it is that the institutions and organisations that run that should not be encouraging that, but then doing absolutely nothing because of conflicts of interest.
It's all a conflict of interest.
Absolutely. When we look at the fact that I remember a BDF training camp many years ago, a lot at the time Kate and I had 4 coaches. Mm-hmm. Bob and Barbara, Alison, Marcus and Karen, Tony and Amanda. Mm-hmm. And when other couples saying I was 17 and one couple said 30, I thought it doesn't matter. Wow. I could dance like Glenn one day. I would never beat you.
Yeah.
Not when you go to the competition and the vast majority of judges you've had lessons with. But the problem is that the organisations won't change it, and they have no desire to change it. And that's one of the things wherein, having been out for 2 years, I'd also don't. There's an element now, James. I don't really care what people think. I'm not scared of people.
Welcome to my world.
Oh, it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been kind of like that for a long time, though. So even when I was competing, that's probably one of the reasons I wasn't so successful.
But the point is that I think it's actually it's a good thing. It's valuable for competitors to be able to have a voice, but they don't. People are absolutely, even my political thing shows, competitors are terrified of stepping outside the good books of coaches. There are lots of coaches out there who are incredibly fair. Alison, for example, we had a tremendous result and she was our worst judge.
Right.
We know, and we don't ask for her marks. We ask for her honest opinion and for her to teach us, and that's why there's so much trust and love for her. And we didn't go into the next lesson going, we won. It's a case of going, tell us, what did you see? But there are conflicts of interest is a massive problem. But at the moment, it's just so abundantly clear that there is no desire to change it. There's no desire to change the status quo.
Well, the people in charge definitely have no interest in changing things, because they do it for their own interest. Of course, they are in those positions for their own interests.
I'm
to milk it as much as they can.
I'm
quite fervently, quite opinionated on this, actually.
Good, because so I mean, if I'm happy to use names, James. You know, if we look at Mark Lund.
Yep. I'd rather not.
You would not. You'd rather
I'd
not.
rather not.
Okay. Well, okay. So you've got, chairman of the GPA, who's now the vice president of the World Dance Council.
But it's not a conflict of interest.
It is a conflict.
It's not. No, it's not. He said it's not.
He may say it's not.
He said it's not a conflict of interest.
He may say what he says and what the law says are two completely different things.
I know. I'm being obviously very facetious.
No. But what he thinks, when you are gaining a monetary value from something or other work, you are absolutely you have got a clear conflict of interest, and that's why, in the real world, he would not be able to hold all three positions. Mm-hmm. He would have to make a choice on one.
Yes.
And this is what I said about the bubble in our industry. Wherein people think that they are not accountable to law, when actually I've studied it for 5 years. I'm not a barrister yet, but it doesn't take a first-year law student can see that we have fundamental problems in our industry. And that stretches back. Whether it's losing court cases, £140,000 to of the British Dance Council, or wherever it may be.
Yeah.
And that individual still having a position. It wouldn't happen in the real world.
No.
It just wouldn't happen.
But the thing is, you see, the people in our business industry, are we really an industry? I don't know if we are. I don't know how you would define us, but in what we do, they think, as you quite rightly say, that the rules don't apply. Oh, no, that's how we've always done it.
Yep.
That's how we run this. This is how it runs. It's an old school, and it's like an old boys club.
Yes.
And we run it this way because that suits us, and that services our needs, rather than thinking about the people that they are serving, and these things that are in position for the benefit of its members.
Correct.
And they often think it's not. Well, they don't think it is.
No,
they think it's for the benefit of themselves, and they might try and allude to the fact that they're doing it for the good, the greater good of everyone. But it's not true. No. It's not true at all.
When people in life, even in business, people have vested interests, but it's a case of acknowledging them, and when time comes, standing aside for the right thing. That happens in every company, nearly every single day. When we have instances wherein the World Dance Council, there are members on the BDC who will not allow WDO events, for example.
Yep. Because
they are on the WDC. That does not happen in the real world. If you're an honorary member or you're a vice president, you're not allowed to take that vote, and that shouldn't be controversial. And it's controversial to say, out of fear, out of worry or concern, but that doesn't happen in the real world. And a first-year law student can tell you that. And you're right. Whether we are in industry or not is such it's an interesting topic. How do you define this weird and wacky world that
it is a bit weird and wacky?
It
You're
is
quite right in that respect.
But there is ego. There is, power. I mean, I think I am the only amateur competitor to have ever had a legal threat from, a legal threat from a director.
A director of
the British Dance Council.
Are you allowed to elaborate on that? Or not?
I am. I put a post. I've got to be careful. I can't say the contents of the message because, of course, that is illegal. But I was sent a message, private message, following my post on Facebook saying, well done to the open worlds. Democracy, freedom, and choice are back on the agenda, and it's great to see Marcus Hilton back on stage.
Right.
That's an opinion.
Yes.
We live in there is free speech. It's protected under the Human Rights Act and the European Convention of Human Rights. But apparently you're not allowed to say that. And I got from a director of Beckel, and of course I've done law for 5 years. I'm not worried. You would never stand up in the court. But again, people who we talk about. I just doing a post about intimidation, and that we don't have the right people. Don't particularly competitors don't have a voice. The irony is, and I get then told, pending legal advice. It's just nonsense, and that should not be something that happens in our industry. But you're right. The old boys club look after each other, and that's not right. And
they don't like dissent in the ranks, you see,
No.
because they can't control that.
No.
They can't control it. I had a similar. I had a phone call from
you had a phone call?
director
Oh, you had it really?
of Beckel,
yeah.
and because in 2020, I think it was 21, there was a competition to be held at Blackpool, and I think it was called the People's Championship. Do you remember that?
I've met, the name rings a bell.
Yeah, the People's Championship. And it was this big event in Blackpool.
Yes.
The people could choose the judges and everything as well. So it was all lovely. It was all going to be lovely. And then, so the week before, because I was meant to be dancing at the Pro-Am with my student, and we were waiting on all the details because there was a VIP package and all these sort of options. And we were waiting to hear back on the costs and the details.
Yep.
And so I was chasing up. And we didn't hear anything about it. And then the week before, I think it was the week before, yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I was at the Ice Ball in London, and there was a message that came out, the comp's been cancelled due to COVID restrictions, due to problems with COVID.
Okay.
And it was to do with, I think, problems in the venue, having too many people in the venue,
Yes.
or something like that.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what the post said, but something like that. So I went online, and at that very moment in time, there was a live feed coming from Blackpool, which was full of people doing, I believe, a formation championship.
Okay.
The place was packed, absolutely packed.
Yeah.
So I made a comment, because I kind of knew anyway. I kind of knew the reason they hadn't given me all the details was because they hadn't had any entries.
Yeah.
They hadn't had anyone wanting to enter. And so I made a comment online about it to said that that's a bit peculiar. Is it really about these COVID restrictions? Because I can quite clearly see there's a live stream. I commented on the live stream.
Yes.
And said, this comp's running, what's the problem with next week then? So all of a sudden there's a problem next week, but there's not a problem now.
Yeah.
And then I got, so I posted that, and that didn't go down too well.
No.
And I got a phone call, which I never returned.
No. Good.
I didn't bother returning it because it's pathetic.
No.
It's pathetic.
But it is intimidation, and
yeah, absolutely.
That is, and if you talk about company law, that my message alone is absolute. And if it's your call, and I know one other professional who got a message as well, that is enough for a director to be struck from a company, and that is what happens in the real world.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we look at someone's homophobic and transphobic comments last year, that should have been dealt with properly, but because people have vested interests, they didn't.
I still can't fathom how nothing really happened about that.
Because you have to look at it and go, okay, if they're not choosing to do something about it, why? And then it's the old boys club. When you look at what's happening now with our lovely council, which I'm not a member of.
Which council are we talking about?
British Dance
Council, yeah.
Which I'm not a member of. And,
neither am I, actually.
And I won't. If I can compete or not, I won't, because it's going in the wrong direction. And we look at it, after COVID, the British Dance Council lost around £80,000. Understandable, we had 3 lockdowns. If, and what will probably happen in my prediction, if the BDC is in more loss this year, in the real world, number 1 and number 2 would lose their jobs.
Yep.
Nowhere in the real world would a company keep, and you've got to remember it's a company, nowhere in the real world would a company keep on people who you wouldn't reward failure.
No, you wouldn't.
And this idea of that, and it would be very interesting to see if this year they've decided to take some, where they're allowed to give themselves an allowance. Because again, in the real world, if you're going to be at a loss, would you take in substantial money for your own self-betterment? Of course you wouldn't.
Well, you wouldn't. You shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
Should you? Of course.
But so there are questions to be very interesting to see what happens when the accounts come out in December. Because this is all in Company's House.
Yes, of course. It's all.
And
or everything we can see is on Company's House.
But I don't understand why, and other dancers, when they got rid of markers, and I genuinely I was near tears because Marcus to me is a hero. I think to me, and this is my opinion, I think Marcus is carrying on the greatest dancer of all time. In my view, I don't think there's even close.
You haven't seen my feather step recently.
I'm sure it's as smooth as lovely as clouds. But when they did that, and I know that there were only 3 amateur couples in the UK who made it quite clear they weren't going to Blackpool. I was just absolutely appalled that when you look at all these people who are happy to have lessons, but you're too scared. Either you're too scared to not go, or you lack integrity.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely right.
My parents have always mentioned, regardless, I could have been a staunch Remainer, they could be Brexiteers. It doesn't matter what you believe, Max. If you believe in it and you got all the facts, and that's the conclusion you come to, and you have that conviction, then that's fine.
You stand in your truth,
And
don't you?
Yeah, and the thing is, even having this conversation, one of us could potentially have that phone call, or worse. I mean, and I just no wonder why you look at the competitions week in, week out, and the members, the amount of people who are attending is low, because it's not about the dancers anymore. This isn't about trying to grow this beautiful industry, about you trying to encourage and blossom British talent. You can put 1 million Facebook posts up. If your organisation is corrupt to the core, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. And that's, and I know it's controversial, and it's 2 years of Max being out, dancing, maybe not being in the real world. But I just...
Well, the thing is that not people don't have... I'm sure there are many people that have a similar opinion, but unfortunately they're so heavily into it.
Yes.
It's their life and their livelihood. Yeah. And they know that if they buck the trend or go against the status quo,
ruffle feathers,
they won't get any work.
No.
And a lot of the professionals, especially the older professionals, they haven't got anything else. They can't do anything else because they've committed themselves to it for such a long time, and it's been able to tick along the same for such a long time. A lot of them think, well, this is just the way we do it. Yeah. But some of them think, well, this is the way we do it. I don't like it, but I've got no choice. I have to go along with it because otherwise I have nothing. I have bills to pay, and they have to be part of it, which is really sad in a way. But if we all stood up together, it would collapse, and something new would appear. No, absolutely. And I do hope that something new does happen.
No, I'll use my Brexiteer analogy because whether it was right or wrong decision, we voted leave to take back control from a group of power-hungry bureaucrats in Brussels and give that power back to the people. Yeah. And that effort, that vote was thwarted for 3 to 4 years by that ruling elite who that current system benefited them in their own way.
Yes, absolutely right.
And
I was a Brexiteer as well, by the way.
Good, because otherwise they'll be very awkward. But you look at it and you go, okay, we made that decision, and people voted to take back control, and there is nothing to say that in this industry we can't do it. This industry is absolutely crazy. You don't have to be a 10 times world champion, or you don't have to be a director of our British Dance Council to realise that.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Yeah.
You don't. Even someone who's been out for 2 years, I can see week in, week out that our industry is completely falling apart. And the management of it,
But do you know why it's falling apart?
Why?
Because you've got dancers running it.
Absolutely.
Dancers who don't know what they're doing.
No, exactly.
They know how to do a feather step or a cha-cha-cha or a cucaracha and add some wapacha timing, but they don't know how to run a business necessarily or an organisation.
No. I mean...
They don't even have proper lawyers involved.
No. If you look at, for example, my masters, sports law, you don't have David Beckham running the FA. You don't have Tyson Fury running the WBO. You don't have Mike Tyson running it. What we are seeing is that actually, in this industry, you have dancers who have got, in the main, no business acumen, no knowledge of the real world, no understanding about the legislative processes behind it, whether that is safeguarding, whether that is GDPR, whether that is equality, diversity and inclusion. They haven't got a clue, because most of them, week in, week out, been to sports halls, competing for a few hours, and that's been their life. And having been out for 2 years and also continuing law, I've realised that actually you're spot on. The people running it are arguably the people who are causing the poor levels at our events, the lack of British growth. And something can change. I'm a vehement believer that if enough people stand up for the right thing, you can overtopple it. History has shown that in every institution. True. And it does take a few brave souls sometimes to lay the first bricks to essentially build a better and brighter future. Because our British Ballroom Latin American dancing deserves that.
It does.
Our competitors deserve that. The dance schools, and it doesn't matter whether you are, you're teaching in some of the finest studios in Aura, in Cheam, in Starlight, or if you're teaching at the local medalist schools, helping those people, regardless of irrespective of age, whether it's 85 or 8, do those medal tests. Everyone deserves the same opportunity, protection, and security. And I cannot, for the sake of me, see that under current management, whether that is the British Dance Council or that is our friends on a more international federation element.
That's another conversation altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, there's another fish. But we look at it. We say it's another fish. But our current president, apart from the WDO European Championships, did not report on the WDO Amateur Ballroom Championships in Copthall, which he attended, nor did he celebrate the Open Worlds run by Paul Killick in Blackpool.
We did report on it. We had the Amateur Europeans.
Yes.
And then obviously Copthall had the Worlds.
Yes.
But neither of those.
Because I know there were some WDO amateur ones done in Poland and stuff like that. He did report.
Right.
But you're saying your one didn't.
No, the British Dance Council did nothing about it.
And the question you have to question why? Because they're doing so many Facebook posts, and it's lovely. To get an engagement of 250 odd per post is great, but it doesn't change the system.
But to be fair, that's probably because they asked me to pay for a organiser's license, and I refused.
Really?
Yes, it could be that.
But you've also got to remember that actually the way that company is run, it doesn't matter if it's about, and which the ethos of it is about, British dancing and promoting its best interest. It doesn't matter whether you've got an organiser's license or not. They should be commentating and rewarding and promoting the good results of British couples.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't mind paying for a license if I got something in return.
Absolutely.
If I pay for something, I want to see a benefit for that payment. I want to see something for it. And what does it give me? It doesn't give me any additional credibility because I ran the comp and we had a tremendous comp. So it's not as though if I'd had the license, people would have known I had the license, and then more people would have come because it was a British Dance Council license.
Sanctioned,
It was still under the same rules, so the rule book is the same, and I think all comps kind of run under the same sort of rules anyway, so it's irrelevant. So what am I getting for it? They don't advertise anything for me. They don't provide a member of staff to come in and provide support.
But the good news is he'll give his reflections about the British, the British Dance Festival, but and he'll talk about the wonderful atmosphere, which we all know wasn't even remotely. You can watch the videos on YouTube. It wasn't even remotely close to that of the Open.
Oh, interesting. Actually, I just realised and his wife judged our comp.
Really?
Yeah.
And he didn't even.
No.
Wow, it's just that's nuts.
Yeah. That's nuts, isn't it? And actually, I didn't get confirmation of that for ages. I mean, I asked her to judge in October.
Okay.
And I think I got confirmation in March for the comp in March.
I don't.
Because they didn't give me approval.
But people on this board, they have this is the legal academic now coming out, under Section 172, directors' duties, they have an obligation to call out this stuff. Anyone, and this is all of them, all 36 of them, whoever, ridiculous number, but all 36 of them, they all have the duty to be able to call out this stuff, and they don't.
But I don't think they know, though. They don't know they've got that duty, probably.
Well, in which other sphere in the world would you have the Companies Act 2006? It's not an all if but a maybe. It is 100%, and they are not. These people aren't stupid. I don't believe that these dancers who are directors on the British Dance Council are stupid. I don't, because they can't be that stupid to have been prestigious world champions or to have been involved in associations and organisations for such a long time. But you do look at it and go, how can you not see the blatant favouritism towards the WDC? How can you not see that there is it is one rule for one, and one rule, and the other party can absolutely just go do this. I lose words, and it's just unsustainable.
Well, it will come crashing down. It will come crashing down.
When do you think so?
Well,
I feel like the drums are banging. I feel like the drums are banging.
It's still going to be around for another 10 years at least, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. Because
I hope not.
It depends if there's a viable solution. I mean, I'm hoping that the WDO doesn't go down the same road as the WDC, because you get the same sort of cronyism as well, because you get similar sort of people in similar sort of positions. I'm not suggesting the guys at the top like that,
no,
because I think that Arunas and Tim particularly have done wonderful work.
Absolutely.
Work. And I know Carmen is also doing great work as well, but it worries me sometimes that you get people involved in both sides, so the WDC and the WDO, who have got a bit too much ego.
No, for sure.
And they are wanting to be in a position of power,
yes,
and a position of authority, because they feel that they've competed at the top for so long. Now they don't compete. They need something else to maintain.
Whether that's adrenaline or something.
Yeah, exactly. They need something to maintain that level, and being in charge or being important in an organisation would satisfy that to a certain degree.
But the only saving grace, and I do agree, because power can really warp people's minds. Apart from one, arguably two couples, all the Latin competitors dance at the WDO Professional Latin. I know that the secretary of the WDC said how brave the champion of Blackpool was for coming along to the competition. It's cowardice. It is cowardice, because when all your competitors are at another competition, you don't do it. That's because you're going to lose. That's cowardice. Yeah. And there's no two ways about that. And even when you look at the professional ballroom or the amateur ballroom, it is still incredibly heavy attendance. So at least when we look at the dancers are behind it. We have to avoid a situation with ego or power or trying to grab to self-better one's interests. But compared to that of the other entity, they think they're invincible. And
they do. Well, they've been there for so long. Some of
them.
I know the British Dance Council Presidium hasn't been in power for that long, because they, after Marcus was rudely ejected, which was preposterous. But I know the WDC people have been there forever.
Yes. And
they just keep being re-elected. I mean, there is a case for, some people don't like to be in charge.
No.
And they're quite happy for someone else to do it.
Yeah.
And they think
some people like being a team, some people like being a leader. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I
same leader though for 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we
call those dictatorships, I think.
Very true. But it could be as simple. I'm not defending them at all. But it could be as simple as, well, there's no one else that really wants to do it.
Absolutely.
And someone's really, really keen to do it.
Yeah.
But having said that, they don't do it right. They don't do it right. So it hasn't done right for years.
No.
And there's lots of question marks over the legitimacy of transactions and all sorts.
Yes.
Allegedly.
No, allegedly, of course.
Allegedly.
No, but the point remains is that and what concerns most is that is so infiltrated within our own council, and not one of them, even our presidium, should ever be able to vote on the WDO competition. They will. It's illegal. They'll still do it. It's just abhorrent. The fact that.
You mean by basically getting authority, so asking for permission? Do you mean to run?
No. If let's say you wanted to run a WDO competition, you wanted to hold it in the UK.
Yeah.
I
do.
Okay, so let's go that route. You do really, or should really have be sanctioned by the British Dance Council.
Yep.
Any one of those who is an honorary member, any of the vice president, or any of those who have got blatant favouritism towards them cannot vote.
I see. I'm with you.
But they do.
But it's actually because I'm led to believe. I think there was 4 people voted, were part of the decision-making group to decide whether we had our permission to run our comp or not.
Yeah.
Of which, one of them is an honorary member. One is the vice president.
Yes.
And so it's nonsense. I mean, to be fair, it's irrelevant. It's just, for me, it's a little bit of administration, because whether or not they said yes or no, the comp was still going to run.
Yeah.
And it makes no difference, no odds, because ultimately, what can they do to me?
Exactly. Nothing.
At all. Absolutely nothing.
I mean, I was approached by 2 judges.
And I'm not trying to be obstinate on purpose.
Or confrontational.
No, I'm not trying to be. But I want to run a comp. I want to run a good
business
comp.
as well.
I'm running a business. Yeah. I mean, it didn't make any money this year, unfortunately. It made lost money this year. But the previous years made money. So, but that's not about that. It's about bringing people together for the joy of dance.
Freedom to dance.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing altogether. Freedom to dance.
Yes.
But that we won't talk about.
No. But I do really worry about the fact that, and dancers don't know this. This information should be out there completely in every amateur and every professional, who is competing or a new professional should watch, even let's say this discussion, go and do their own research. Go onto company's house. Go look on BBC articles about what's happened to the British Dance Council in the past.
Yeah.
You know, educate yourself, learn, and actually question, because at the end of the day, this old guard, this establishment, they won't be here forever. And we've got to ensure that future generations of dancers and the next as yourself included, the young professionals have got the education, understanding and knowledge to be able to protect dancers, because they're not.
The thing is as well that people like us, like Kelly and myself, we get tired of it and think, do you know what? I've had enough. I don't need this.
No.
I don't need to do this. I can move on.
Correct.
And so people will get quite tired of it all and think, oh, do you know what? Let someone else deal with it, and they'll just move. They'll move away from dancing. As you were saying about the people stopping dancing now, the people that aren't in it anymore. One of the reasons for that is they just are fed up with the politics of it all, and the conflict all the time, and the problems. You can't do this comp because of that person, or that person says you can't do this because it means you won't get this result, or you'll be ostracised. And it's nonsense. No. It's absolute nonsense, when ultimately all we want to do is go out there and dance to some music.
It is very clear there is a cabal, and if you're in that group, your career is golden. If you dare stand up against it, you know, I would fear what would happen if I did the British clothes if I came back, and I won't. You know, I won't. You know, if I can back, I'm not.
Well, the panels used to be chosen by the organizer and the chairman.
Correct.
And I believe that is no longer the case.
I wouldn't know, but I've known about the formal history about it, how they've been run. But it wouldn't surprise me. You know, get all your friends on, you know, put them on a panel, and it's just, that is so wrong, and no reason why we look at our dance industry and they go, actually there is no integrity, there is no
there isn't. There really isn't any
there's
integrity.
No transparency, and you know, that leads on to the whole thing. How do we fix this? Because unfortunately, like, you know, this is a legal Pandora's box, and it does not take someone clever, you know, to put in a couple of letters in the right places. BDC closes down, WC closes down. You know, it doesn't take. Are
you looking to do that then? Is that something you want to do?
In fear of this video being seen by the right people or the wrong people, I'm not going to comment on that. But the point is that
they're basically on borrowed time, is what you're saying. They're on borrowed time, and they're on a very loose thread.
They should all, you know, I say it's in particular to, you know, that of our chairman, who I don't think is, well, I hope not, is acting in the best or worst interest of our industry. But it's very clear that if there are people out there, you know, if this conversation we can have, and we can criticise our industry so much, and they can see these issues and they refuse to do nothing about it, then actually, what's the reason of, you know, looking after these people? What was the reason for? And it's not blackmail, it's not intimidation, it's not anything like that. But there comes to a point in reality when actually going, and people, like Brexit, the people have had enough.
Yeah.
You know, and that time is coming, and we are. I do genuinely feel like, you know, the people are up and down. You know, our nation, you know, are sick and tired of the establishment, and I do hope that their world comes crashing down, and that we can start afresh for the betterment of dancers. How that happens, let's play for a miracle or a shooting star.
I don't think we need a miracle.
Are you religious?
We just need a hero.
Bonnie Tyler.
Just need a hero. Yeah.
You know.
So what's next for you then, Max? Now, so what's the plan? That you're getting yourself a bit more up together, and
I'm going to finish my sportsman masters. My dissertation is actually about ballroom dancing, so that'll be a very good read. It should be a pleasant read for some and unpleasant for others, but it's going to be a fun read. And finish off the bar school. I've just got a job at the Supreme Court.
Wow, that sounds important.
Well, yeah, yes and no. It's part of the registry office, so you are involved in the applications to the Supreme Court. So, and you're making sure that all the bundles are correct. You're making sure that the law is correct. Making sure that it's applicable to the court. You know, and it's going to be a very fun adventure. You know, my first full-time job, which will be great. You know, and I'm going to look forward to just focusing on education, focusing on getting my health sorted, and one day and keep on dreaming and believing that actually hopefully I can get back onto that floor and do what I love most.
The good thing, of course, I mean, of course, we'd all want to see that.
Yes,
absolutely want to see you back competing again. But of course, the beauty of what we do is that that isn't everything.
No.
Because you can still be involved in dance, but just not necessarily on the competition floor.
No.
So you can still get your fix, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very, very lucky to have some incredible teachers, and starting from the ground up. We've been, Kate and I are blessed to have masters and magicians and incredible technicians when it comes to dancing. And I think actually having had all that year's worth of knowledge drummed into us, it's actually almost like a duty to give that off to the next generation, to help them if they want to become a world champion, or if they want to just learn how to dance, do their side by side in a social context, regardless, helping people learn the gift and joy that is ballroom Latin dancing. And that's although I've been pursuing a career in law, and the aim is to become a sports law barrister, and hopefully not one day be an aspiring sports law barrister, but be a sports law barrister. Even with that legal education, I just want to dance. I just want to teach people to dance and to, put a smile on people's face like the way that all my teachers did.
Yeah, that's quite beautiful. That's lovely, really, isn't it?
But that's what I'm sure that's why you teach. It's giving that, and I would say gift, that rhythm, that beauty to other people. That's what this is supposed to be about. It's why I get so passionate and frustrated. I'm sure you're similar about the other ridiculous external rubbish, because actually at the end of the day, there are bigger things, and actually that's the dancers, that's the customers, that's the clients, that's that next generation. Regardless of age, regardless of skill, regardless of level, that is what the priority is. That is what it's all about. And I would love to teach. I would love to be able to teach. And whatever knowledge I have left in this head, that's not.
Well, you're going to fill it full of sports law, aren't you?
Well,
it's getting. You're going to have to.
It's getting rammed in. It's getting rammed. Got books
make it fairer for Southampton to win every week.
One of the pretexts of sports law is that you're not allowed to cheat. So the problem is I don't see any. You guys will bounce up. So will Leicester.
Well, we've signed a couple of players already, actually. So there's already people tweeting saying
Luton
that we're buying the league.
You're buying the league.
Yeah.
I think that's very hard to say that when you look at Manchester City.
Well, the thing is, we've bought Manchester City players.
Have you really?
Yeah. Some of their youth team.
Wow.
Yeah, we bought their top prospect. Yeah.
You'll be back up.
I'm sure we'll be all right. At least we'll win a few more matches this year. Hopefully, we only won 6 last season.
Was it 6? I thought it was 7. I was being nice.
I'm sure it was 6.
6.
Yeah, 18 points. Then we had. We didn't get very many points at all.
In fairness, we were up at the top of the table for so very long. And
I honestly couldn't see Arsenal not losing. But then they just wobbled, didn't they? They wobbled.
The only saving grace that you can turn around and say, well, at least Manchester City won the treble. What a great team, the treble-winning team. Scrap the fact that what was it, at 1.8 points ahead. Yeah,
and we stopped them doing the quadruple because we beat them in the League Cup.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah, beat them in the League Cup. That was
I
like 3
think the
games
world
in.
owes you a thanks.
There were 3 games into our manager's tenure. I can't remember his name. Nathan Jones. That's it. 3 games in, and we beat Man City, and then we think, we might be all right. And then we beat Everton away, and we might do all right. And then we didn't win another game. We didn't win another game. We didn't win another game.
Really?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Wow.
Awful.
But it comes in swings and roundabouts, and the league is so unfair. That's why they've got a regulator coming in.
I see.
There's a white paper. There's a regulator coming in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Really controversial, but again, people.
Well, it's the people at the top. It's the haves and the have-nots, isn't it?
Correct.
Again, and the people that know the right people and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how that. We'll see how that goes and how that's accepted. But in the meantime,
every industry's in a bit of a mess, though, isn't it? Really.
The country's in a mess.
It's all a mess.
The country's in a mess. But at least we've all got a good sense of humour and a smile on our face.
That's the important thing. Yeah.
At least we can do that. That's the main thing.
Well, this has been great, Max.
No, thank you. Put the world to
awesome.
Right. To talk all good things and common sense.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Well, thank you very much for being a dancer in my car.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to have you. We've waffled on for ages. It's a long one.
It is.
I think it's been the message you've been putting across is tremendous, and you're going to do some wonderful things. I think
it's very kind.
I think you do some wonderful things.
And thank you for letting me talk about my heart, because it does mean a lot. Honestly.
Yeah, well,
it's very kind.
Pleasure.
Brilliant.
Let's hope that more awareness is brought then to the problems that you've encountered, so other people can be helped as well.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Max.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.